Another morning, another live session. So today we're going to discuss a very often asked misconception. Patients, when they come to me for hair transplant, they undergo a rigorous consultation, especially when they are young, and especially when they have extensive baldness at a young age. And they have a strong family history of baldness. So they have to undergo a rigorous session of consultation to know their goals and objectives and whether their objectives are rational enough to withstand the onslaught of baldness, which is ever progressive, whether they are committed enough to follow the medication that we advise, because it's not about hair transplant only when you're young and you have extensive baldness with a strong family history. It's about a holistic treatment which entails medical treatment, which may entail the three cornerstones of medical treatment. One is lifestyle changes, DHT blockers, and minoxidil. So if you think that a hair transplant is the final cure and the only cure for baldness, you're badly mistaken and you're in for a rude shock. A rude awakening is just around the corner. Because if you get a hair transplant at 25, 26, 27, and your baldness is progressive, your donor area is miniaturizing, you're living in a make-believe world, because unless you get this right, unless you stop the progression, unless you stop the forest fire, you cannot plant new trees. The fire will consume the new trees as well. So better get your research on road before going in for a hair transplant. Otherwise, there will be a rude awakening in the few months to follow. Because clinics, most clinics are run as commercial clinics. They do not advise about long-term care, about long-term maintenance of hair. So it lies upon you to research this topic properly before jumping into a hair transplant. So look before you leap, before you get into a hair transplant without adequate amount of research, without adequate amount of knowledge. And every time I counsel a patient about the need for taking finasteride, if he is young, after a hair transplant, the need for taking finasteride, they do nod in concurrence that they will, and they commit themselves to medical treatment. But as soon as the hair transplant is done, they are in two minds. Now, when the die is cast, you can't get away. The anchor is laid. Now, you cannot change horses midstream. Because if you do, your entire effort of hair transplant, the surgeon's effort, your effort, you've spent time, emotions, energy, money, may also come to naught, may go to waste, because you have to understand the science behind hair loss and what hair transplant can do and what are the limitations of a hair transplant. And patients keep asking me, doctor, instead of oral finasteride, can I take topical finasteride? Well, topical finasteride, please take it out of your mind. Topical finasteride is a commercial preparation. It does not reach your roots at a sufficient concentration to stop the onslaught of DHT. Whenever there is a gap in treatment, people are afraid of finasteride side effects, the industry steps in and produces a new treatment. And most of these treatments are not in your best interest. They are merely commercial preparations. People do report that, yeah, topical finasteride has given me a lot of good result, but then you don't take anything, probably your baldness is stable. So these are the anecdotal evidences online. Please do not go by them, go by scientific evidence. And I have been in this practice for the last 20 years in hair loss treatment and hair transplant practice. And I can tell you that if you delve in these unsubstantiated medical treatments, you will not live to tell the tale. Your baldness will progress. And therefore, the patients who have not benefited by topical finasteride have given up, are nowhere there to give any opinion on the internet, because they've given up. They've given up on the forums, they've given up on online posting online, and that is why I do not read about their experiences. But believe me, I have been in this practice and I know these things don't work. And I'm not telling you for financial gain. I'm not selling any finasteride. Finasteride is such a cheap drug. Even if they give me 50% of the entire sales, it is not enough for a hair transplant surgeon, Medical treatment is very important before you go for a hair transplant. And what advice I give you, and I'm not selling you any drug because I'm not mentioning any trade name. I just mention the salt name, finasteride. I'm not mentioning its various names produced by various companies. And the other problem that we have increasingly is patients wanting to explore after hair transplant DHT blockers of natural origin. So let me tell you, in the realm of androgenic alopecia, I'll answer the questions one by one after the talk is over. Let me first go through it, my chain of thought, and then I will answer these questions after this is over. And if you have any further questions, anyone has further questions as you join in, please jot them down and put them in the comment section and I'll reply back to you. In the realm of androgenic alopecia, the quest for alternatives to oral finasteride has garnered significant attention. While finasteride remains the cornerstone, the keystone treatment due to its robust inhibition of the enzyme 5-alpha reductase, and which reduces the amount of DHT level. But the concerns about potential side effects have led some people to explore natural DHT blockers. And these natural DHT blockers are so many, and chief amongst them, which are worthy of mention, which most commonly are marketed and most patients mention the names, are pumpkin seeds, saw palmetto. So natural agents like these have been investigated for their potential to mitigate hair loss. Saw palmetto is believed to be an inhibitor of 5-alpha reductase, and this decreases the synthesis of DHT. And similarly, so is the case with pumpkin seed oil, which has demonstrated a positive anabolic effect on hair growth in a 24-week study, suggesting possible 5-alpha reductase inhibition. But you are missing the elephant in the room here. Is this inhibition of 5-alpha reductase sufficient enough to rein in the onslaught of baldness? Are these natural inhibitors as efficacious as pharmacological grade drugs like finasteride? That is the question. So let us enumerate these natural DHT blockers. What are they? One is saw palmetto, which is Serena repens. This botanical extract is believed to inhibit 5-alpha reductase, thereby it reduces the DHT synthesis. While some studies suggest its potential in mitigating hair loss, its efficacy is significantly lower, much lower than finasteride. And then we have pumpkin seed oil, or cucurbita pepo. This is rich in phytosterols, particularly beta-cytosterol. Pumpkin seed oil also may impede DHT production, and a study indicated a 40% increase in hair count among participants using pumpkin seed oil supplement. You may try these natural supplements, but please do not try them after hair transplant. If you have smaller grades of baldness, little thinning, please start with these natural DHT blockers, but please do not take them as an alternative to oral finasteride when the forest fire on your scalp is raging, or when you're contemplating a hair transplant. The other natural DHT blockers are green tea, Pygium africanum, which is the extract of an African tree bark, which has demonstrated anti-androgenic properties. And then we have nettle root, which is an anti-inflammatory property, which has an anti-inflammatory property just like curcumin from turmeric. They both have anti-inflammatory effects, and because there is inflammation before hair loss takes place, and this is said to control that. And then we have mushroom, reishi mushroom, and then caffeine, zinc, and licorice root. So what is the clinical perspective of these natural DHT blockers? While these natural agents offer a gentle approach to DHT inhibition, their efficacy pales in comparison to finasteride. In clinical practice, patients who opt for natural alternatives other than often experience variable results, and the response spectrum is so wide that you cannot bet on these to rein in your baldness to be of any use after hair transplant. Some may observe a temporary stabilization or a modest improvement in the hair density, but the progressive nature of androgenic alopecia typically resumes over time. It is not enough to defeat the onslaught of baldness. So it is imperative to counsel patients that relying solely on natural DHT blockers is akin to bringing a knife to a gunfight when combating male pattern baldness. For those who are unwilling or unable to take finasteride, a comprehensive approach which may include lifestyle changes, topical treatments, close monitoring is advisable. However, expectations should be tempered, understanding that these measures may not halt the progression of hair loss entirely. Finasteride has been shown to reduce DHT levels by approximately 70%, with clinical studies indicating an 83% success rate in halting hair loss. In contrast, DHT blocking effects of natural agents, which we have already enumerated above, are comparatively modest, and the supporting evidence is less robust. And my clinical experience with patients who I have seen taking these natural DHT blockers has been so poor that it's not worthy of comment. I would not have done a video like this, but for patients increasingly asking me whether they can take pumpkin seed oil and saw palmetto. Otherwise, stressing on these natural DHT blockers defeats the purpose, because it gets into your mind that yes, this might be an alternative. But I'm trying to bust the myth that natural DHT blockers of any use as compared to pharmacological grade DHT blockers like finasteride. But there are some patients who report satisfactory outcomes using natural DHT blockers, and these instances are exceptions rather than the norm. The progression of androgenic alopecia is relentless, and without effective intervention, native hair is likely to continue to thin over time, potentially compromising your initial gains which have been achieved through alternative therapies. So in clinical practice, it is crucial to counsel patients on limitations of these natural DHT blockers and the importance of evidence-based treatments. For those unable or unwilling to take finasteride, a comprehensive approach that includes lifestyle modifications has been already discussed, and which I have done a video on, is more important to take into your protocol of treatment for androgenic alopecia. So in the grand theater of hair restoration, finasteride often plays the lead role, commanding the stage with proven efficacy in inhibiting 5-alpha reductase, and it reduces the dihydrotestosterone levels, DHT levels. Many patients do not want to take it because they are wary of the potential side effects, which are generally of sexual nature. And when you are young, these side effects may sound very alarming to you. And even if there's a 1% chance, people are hesitant to take this drug. While these alternatives like saw palmetto and pumpkin seed oil may offer a gentler approach, their performance often lacks the dramatic impact of the star player finasteride, oral finasteride. So they are just a supporting cast. So while these DHT blockers, these natural DHT blockers may offer a little bit of respite from thinning in very early cases of hair loss due to androgenic alopecia, male pattern baldness, they are not to be considered by any stretch of imagination as to be alternatives for the proven treatments, proven DHT blockers, pharmacological grade DHT blockers like finasteride. So with that, I end the talk. I hope I've cleared the myth that natural DHT blockers are an alternative to finasteride. If I haven't, and if you have any further questions, please let me know. Leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll be happy to answer back to you. And if you want any personalized consultation about your hair transplant, please contact us on the numbers given above. But if you want any consultation about hair loss treatment, which is long-term treatment, either please join us in our clinic in person, or join membership of this channel, and we can continue to discuss your doubts, your misconceptions if you have any, and also seek out certain treatments which might be appropriate for you. But remember that a treatment has only to be started when you visit the doctor in person, not online. So thank you for watching, and God bless you. Have a nice day.